When the town of Trim decided to hold an annual Swift Festival, it had a truly good reason for it. For although Jonathan Swift is well known to have been Dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, not many realise that Swift was previously vicar of this tiny chapel in Laracor on the outskirts of Trim. From there grew his lifelong affection for the area. The original chapel in Laracor was replaced in the 19th century by this newer structure, but the connection with Swift remains.
This is Laracor Church. In 1695 he was made Church of Ireland clergyman, and about 5 years later he was given the living of Laracor, as it's called, plus two smaller parishes not far away in County Meath. This gave him an income now of £230 a year, which was a considerable improvement on the £20 that he had been earning previously as a secretary to an English diplomat near London.
The chapel here has been deconsecrated. It's now a private dwelling, home to Richard and Anne-Marie Howarth and their antiquarian book business. Their stall at the Swift Festival always includes Swift, and their bookshelves display the impressive range of his writings, still fresh after 3 centuries: satire, politics, correspondence, and even poetry.
I often wished that I had clear for life £600 a year, a handsome house to lodge a friend, a river at my garden's end, a terrace walk and half a rood of land set out to plant a wood. I think Swift would have liked to have something on that scale. He couldn't really afford it, but Laracor was his substitute, his country cottage. He liked to come here from Dublin. Even when he was employed in St. Patrick's, he still kept Laracor as a parish.
The Howards love collecting illustrated editions of Swift's bestseller, Gulliver's Travels.
The French artist Poinçon did a very attractive series of coloured views. Again, here we have Gulliver on the beach with the ropes holding him down, done in a Japanese style, which was fashionable at that time when Japan was being opened up to the West. This one is by Brock, and it's got a very attractive design on the cover, gold stamping. This would be a very nice present book from the Edwardian period, and there's all the standard scenes.
Swift often travelled to nearby Trim from his small parish in Laracor to seek company.
Swift liked to walk into town or occasionally ride into Trim. He was a man for exercise. He loved to advocate it for the health. He had several friends here in Trim he liked to visit. He liked to go to parties with his friends in the town, where they would have toasted oranges, claret, and play cards.
And among those who enjoyed a game of cards with Swift in Trim was the great love of his life, Esther Johnson, whom he nicknamed Stella. His letters to her from London during some years at the inner circle of government were famously published after his death as the Journal to Stella.
We're so lucky to have the Journal to Stella because apart from all of the political work that he did, the satires and so on, the letters, the sermons, it represents him as the human being that he was, because we find out about his exploits in London, we hear about him swimming in the River Thames, we hear what sort of parties he attended, and it makes him really come alive.
Across the River Boyne, facing the castle, is St. Mary's Abbey. This was once the home of Esther Johnson, Stella. Through its windows we can experience the same view of the castle that she would have enjoyed nearly 300 years ago. Stella bought the house for £65 in 1716, and Dean Swift bought it from her the following year for £200. The present owner, solicitor Peter Higgins, is pleased to own copies of documents that record these transactions.
And for example, this one here, if you look at the name Blakely to Johnson, now Johnson is Esther Johnson, so this is an extract of the deed from Esther Johnson. Stella bought the house. This one up here was the following year, and again Esther Johnson's signature, Stella's signature is there, and she's selling the house, Johnson to Swift. The Dean of St. Patrick's, so Jonathan Swift, the Doctor of Divinity, Dean of the Cathedral Church of St. Patrick, is buying the house.
Since he bought the house, Peter Higgins has appropriately taken a special interest in Swift's work and also collects rare early editions.
Collecting Swift is sort of one of the long established ones, partly because he wrote so much. I mean, he wrote a huge volume of stuff during his lifetime. I mean, that there is, you know, I mean, 10 volumes of a 19 volume, 10 or 12 volumes of a 19 volume set of his complete work. So, I mean, it was a good deal more than that. And so they're very collectible, they're valuable, they're very handsome to look at, and a lot of it, I suppose the most importantly, is very readable.
The lovely Church of Ireland Cathedral in Trim holds another important relic of Swift's life, one that reminds us that he was a cleric as well as a writer, satirist and political activist. The safe here guards the old Irish silver chalice and paten that Swift used to celebrate the Eucharist in his little parish at nearby Larracore.
We don't know a great deal about his, you know, the depth of his spirituality and his own personal faith. But he had a huge social conscience. He was very much for the downtrodden and the lower echelons of society.
He was very concerned with poverty.
Very concerned with poverty. And as I say, you know, he had that, and that created that great social conscience that he had.
Pat Dunn is a former chairman of the Swift Festival and is also a writer of archaeological thrillers. As a writer himself, he admires how Swift used satire to express that great social conscience in works like A Modest Proposal, written in 1729.
It's probably one of the most savage pieces of satire ever written, and it concerns the wretched state of Ireland at the time and the poverty into which the people were sunk. But Swift had a great idea. Let the Irish eat their babies. Here's an excerpt. I have been assured by a very knowing American of my acquaintance in London that a young, healthy child, well nourished, is at a year old a most delicious, nourishing and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked or boiled. I grant this food will be somewhat dear and therefore very proper for landlords who, as they have already devoured most of the parents, seem to have the best title to the children.
Ouch! And all going well, Swift's life, work and times will be celebrated and examined once again next summer in the appropriate venue of his beloved Trim in County Meath.